Welcome to our Let's Talk session today, Ending the Illiteracy Epidemic, Advancing Nationwide Equity Through Reformed Language and Literacy Ecosystems. I'm Debbie Mathias from the BUILD Initiative and the Director of the QRIS National Learning Network. Before we begin our session, I'd like to thank the Alliance for Early Success and other generous funders for making this learning community possible. We began this series for state quality administrators and leaders to support their essential work within states around early learning systems building. We have colleagues registered from over 20 states and territories. We intentionally keep the sessions small to invite conversations and sharing. We hope these calls enable us to illuminate challenges, innovation, and promising practices. For this session, participants were asked to review a short video. If each of you could please enter your thoughts or ideas about the video or the topic for today into the chat box, it will help us jumpstart our conversation together. We have a perfect-sized group to hear what's on your mind. As we move through this session, enter your thoughts in the chat box so we can discuss them throughout the session. States are working to support early learning programs to improve services for children that result in stronger preparation for school and life. We're seeking research-based supports for early educators to strengthen their practice and effectiveness. During this session, we'll hear about the Cox Campus, a free and universally accessible online learning platform and virtual community. Through research-based video courses designed for all adults who work with and on behalf of children, the Cox Campus provides immediately applicable classrooms and real-life practices designed to construct reading brains. Today, we'll take a tour of the courses, discuss forums and resources of the Cox Campus. You'll also hear from a professional who's implemented the Cox Campus methods to achieve significant success on the ground. Jonathan, can you move to the next slide, please? Well, our session contributors today include Comer Yates, Executive Director of the Atlanta Speech School. He's the Executive Director, and during his tenure, the school established the Rollins Center for Language and Literacy, a professional development program that focuses on coaching and training that provides teachers and school leaders with the capacity to have every child birth to 8 on a path toward grade level reading by 3rd grade. We have Jennifer Wolford, who's the Director of Strategy and Operations at the Rollins Center for Language and Literacy. She provides leadership for Rollins' strategic planning process and implements new programmatic strategic initiatives. In addition, she provides coordination for the Rollins team and serves as a liaison to Rollins partners, works with the Rollins board to keep them informed and engaged. Corey Kane is the Director of Partnerships for the Rollins Center for Language and Literacy. She's currently the Assistant Director for Service Delivery, and her responsibilities include program development and implementation, training, grant management, and public-private partnership collaboration. We'd like to welcome Melissa Cole, who will join us more near the end of the presentation to provide a real-life example of how an organization is using the Cox Campus. She's the Executive Director of Region 5 Child Care Resource and Referral of Southeast Georgia at Savannah Technical College. Her experience in direct care ranges from working in Georgia's lottery-funded pre-K program to teaching in the elementary school setting. Her previous roles with the Savannah Technical College have been as an adjunct instructor, a TNTA team lead, operations manager, and assistant director of operations. Well, without further ado, I'd like to turn it over to Comer Yates to get us started on this discussion and help us learn more about the Cox Campus. It's all yours, Comer.
Great. Debbie and Jonathan, thank you so much, and everybody, we really appreciate your being with us today. Quickly, I'm proud to say that I've been at the Atlanta Speech School for 22 years. We're an 82-year-old school institution. Just very quickly, we opened as a free school, and our commitment to equity around language and literacy and education is based on a history. We've never turned away a child because of financial limitation our 82 years. So as a framework for what we're doing and all that we do every day here, we follow the message of about 150 years ago from Frederick Douglass, who said, once you learn to read, you'll be forever free. Unfortunately, 150 years ago and today still, our country is in the grips of an illiteracy crisis that's denied millions and millions of our children every year the right to decide their own futures. The consequences are tragic, and on so many levels, this loss of human potential is tearing at the moral and social and socioeconomic fabric of our country. Of course, the crisis is nothing new. It's centuries old, nor has any change been made in who is at greatest risk to suffer from illiteracy. It is the children of families who generation after generation have lacked access, or in the South, particularly here, been denied access to educational opportunity. So today, really, access to literacy remains defined by a child's race, ethnicity, and zip code. What is new, and what we're going to be talking about today, is the fact that research in the last 30 years makes it absolutely, unequivocally has been determined what we must do to end the epidemic. The science shows us a path forward toward eradicating illiteracy, universal literacy for our children. What's at stake is whether or not we have the will to do that and make literacy within the reach of every child. And the particular focus today is on children birth to 5 and the people in the public health space and in the early childhood education space who are engaging with the children, and what do their behaviors, what do their relationships, what is their interaction, and what is their instruction with children birth to 5 need to look like to break the cycle of illiteracy. And perhaps maybe the best way to show this, beyond just talking about it, everything you'll hear about the Cox Campus today is around a promise that we are providing teachers and others with the capacity to keep that is defined by the research on who we have to be and what we need to do with our children birth to 5. So here's a quick video that gives an overview of this interaction and engagement. And Jonathan's pulling it up right now, I think.
Our futures are at stake. The problem is teachers telling us to be quiet. And when they do want us to use our words, a lot of us don't have any. They want us to stop talking and pay attention. But I can't if I'm afraid I'll make them mad. We know that there are times when you need our attention. But if we keep on being quiet, we never learn how to use our words. And they will fall further and further behind. Let me show you where it starts. That's my friend on the changing table. There's our teacher, Miss Ellis. She always took good care of me, but I wish she would have talked with me. She just didn't know it was important. No one told her. This is the time that you need to start talking with children. We are beginning to put words together, even though you may not understand us yet. So we want to learn from you. But the talking shouldn't stop there. That's Miss Fredericks. She never told me to be quiet, but she did tell me to catch a bubble or to zip it.
I need you to catch a bubble. You need to stop talking. It is way too loud in the room.
Catch a bubble? Are you kidding me? Why couldn't she just ask me to listen? Now, where do you think we'll be when we get to the 3rd grade? We're gonna be behind. That's what's gonna happen. School's gonna be hard for us. We'll have trouble with reading, trouble with writing, trouble with everything. Yeah, for a lifetime. And that's why we need you. We need you to give our voices power. And here's how you can help us. When you're changing diapers, tell us about your day. Tell us about what you're doing.
What did you enjoy doing today when we went outside?
We love to hear your voice and new words. And when you want our attention, try singing to us. Or try this. Listen up. What's up? What's up? What's up? What's up? See what I mean? Don't be afraid to use big words with us. We have big ideas, and we need big words to share these ideas with you. And support our home language. It only takes a little effort on your part. You can learn a few words to greet us.
Buenos dias. Hola. How are you?
Good.
Good. You ready to put your backpack up? You can take it out.
Now that's not so hard, is it? First of all, get down on our level. Talk with us. Use your words. Ask us what we think, not what color a banana is. Give us the words that we need to solve problems on our own. We need you to make us a promise. We need you to promise us that you'll never tell us to be quiet again.
I need you to catch a bubble. You need to stop talking.
Why would you want to silence us? Can you promise us? Can you pinky promise us?
Well, so again, all our work is around keeping that promise, and what that promise involves is really an application of the science around what needs to happen for children from birth to 5 in order to build what... I hope everybody can hear me. That was quite an introduction. What that video speaks to is again, our engagement with children birth to 5 demanded for what we describe as the foundation for a deep reading brain and end our country's illiteracy epidemic. So if we're on the screen right now, you'll see that the epidemic is such that only 37% of our country's 4th graders are reading proficiently. And so I want to stop for just a second at this slide and see that number. And that's a horrific number to consider. But before we go on to the next screen, if we just hold right there, I want everybody, if you've got something to type with or something to write with, I talked earlier about zip code, race, and ethnicity and the disparate outcomes. And I'm going to show you a slide in just a minute, not yet, where we're going to talk about this. So we live in Atlanta, Georgia, and just to give you a sense of this disparity, I would ask you to guess, those of you who are listening, to what percentage of white children do you think in the Atlanta public schools read proficiently in 4th grade? That would be the first group. What percentage of African American children read proficiently in 4th grade? Then what percentage of Hispanic children read proficiently in 4th grade? And then finally, or the last two categories, children not on free and reduced lunch. Their family have enough means that they don't require free or reduced lunch, not eligible. What percentage of them are proficient readers? And then finally, children on free and reduced lunch in Atlanta, what percentage of them read proficiently? So those are the 5 categories: white children, African American children, Hispanic children, children not on free and reduced lunch, and children on free and reduced lunch. I hope y'all went ahead and tried to guess. And let's just go to the next slide where you'll see the numbers in Atlanta as well as other major urban areas as identified by the most recent NAEP scores, the National Assessment of Educational Progress from 2017. And you can see the just tragic numbers in the hometown of Martin Luther King, where 73% of our white children proficient readers, and then the other numbers going across the page. And given where you are in the country, you can notice that Atlanta is not atypical around these figures, and again, the disproportionalities that you see. And again, while these numbers are not a product of race or ethnicity, but they're a product, race or ethnicity is unfortunately, much worse than unfortunately, determined who's had access to educational opportunity. So beyond that, though, well, so how did we get here? If we go to the next slide, and I wish that I had a way of shipping you all a T-shirt for every who gets the right answer. If we go to the next slide, why do we have an illiteracy crisis? Well, you can blame this guy who was born, I think, in 1400, and he invented something in 1442 that changed everything, and that is the printing press. And that you're looking at Gutenberg, and when he mass-produced print for the first time in 1440, he demanded that our brains engage in a novel function. We don't have as Dr. Marianne Wolf says, who is such a leading authority on literacy, says we don't have a single gene in our brains at birth for a reading circuit. We just have more primitive auditory and visual circuits. And what happens to us from the last trimester of pregnancy through age 8, when the brain is most plastic, it's the engagement with us by adults that is going to either build this circuit or not for deep reading. And if you go to the next slide, what does it look like for a deep reading brain to be constructed? What has to happen early on? And if we keep going beyond that, about building those, building that circuit, you'll see a diagram of the beginning of early brain construction, where at birth, we're born with about 100 billion neurons in our brains, but very few of them, on the next slide, if we get a chance to go that, but there you can see at birth we have about 100 billion neurons in our brains, but very few are attached, so we can adapt to our environments. And one of the things to which we have to learn how to adapt is the ability to read, since again it's not something that's native to us. And now Harvard has, in the last 18 months, has determined that the brain in a second, based on interaction with adults in a child's life or other interactions, 1 million neurons per second are constructed in the matter of a million neurons are, a million synapses are created per second based on interactions. And it's critically important what those interactions look like. For example, if they're interactions that create fear in the child, we're going to activate synapses in the brainstem and produce excess of adrenaline that's going to prevent access to the cognitive areas of the brain if these interactions aren't what they need to be or where they need to be. So essentially, if you go from there, what we're talking about is this last trimester through age 8 cycle, from birth to 5, or last trimester to age 5, looking at the next slide, is about preparation of the reading brain. And you can see we go from prepare the reading brain, which is really about early language, to kindergarten through 3rd grade is teaching the unnatural act of attaching sound to symbol. And then the last part of the reading brain expansion, which endures, which happens through life, is the completion and continued growth of that deep reading circuit. And essentially, deep reading over a lifetime really becomes about whether a child and then an adult has the ability to read in a way that's not about the child or adult finding out who the author is or what the author or characters believe or stand for, but it's reading at a level that allows the reader to figure out who she is, what she believes, and what she stands for. So on to the next slide, I'm getting ready to turn things over to Jennifer. What we know when we look at the birth to 5 space and preparation of the reading brain, we are thinking about the foundation upon which the instruction of decoding has to depend. If you've ever looked at Hollis Scarborough's Braid for Reading, you'll see these language abilities. So essentially everything that we have in our work from the last trimester through age 5 on the Cox campus for adults to have the capacity to prepare a deep reading brain focuses on interactions that build children's language, executive functions, critical thinking, and empathy. Pulling back out from there, what you'll see on the Cox campus, we are looking at whether or not the adults in young children's lives are seeking compliance from the children or seeking a connection with children. And compliance-based interactions are really doing excessive focus on compliance and exalting management of children is doing significant damage to children's prefrontal cortexes that control executive functions. And of course, that type of overregulation of children is also defeating language, critical thinking, and empathy. And we can go back and discuss that in more detail during the question session, but I'm going to turn things over to Jennifer, who is the director of the Ryland Center, to focus on what the Cox campus does during this preparation phase to build adult capacity. So, Jennifer, are you ready?
Sorry.
I can keep talking about.
I'm good. Just want to get the right thing up. So, thank you for taking the time to visit with our team today, and we wanted to talk to you a little bit about what Cox Campus is and then show you around the campus for a little view into what we would like to offer to all the early learning providers across the United States and beyond for free. So Cox Campus is a prenatal through 3rd grade destination for child-facing professionals everywhere, where they can learn how to create and foster an ecosystem for constructing the brain for reading and all learning as they serve children and their families. So if you, as we were putting together Cox Campus, we talked to several different adults and learners online to find out what they would need for education, and what they talked to us about was that they wanted to learn from someone who was relatable online, and they wanted to actually learn how to do things, so changing theory into practice. And they wanted to see environments that look like their environments with children that look like their children, and be given the resources they need in order to put what they're learning into practice. So the way that we've developed Cox Campus to date is that if you are already a member of Cox Campus and you come back to Cox Campus, you will see what I'm showing on the screen right now, which is what we call our individual dashboard. If you just go to coxcampus.org, without having been a member already, you will see what we call our landing page, where you can learn a lot about what Comer just spoke about. And then you can link right into logging into Cox Campus and becoming a member with simply your name, email address, and a password. And then you can start learning from there. If you just want to peruse through Cox Campus, you do not have to be a member to see what all is on there. You can go and look, but if you want to finish courses or download a resource or get a certificate for a completion of a course, you would need to be a member on Cox Campus. So the dashboard would be the first menu item that you see on the top left, and that's where you land. On my dashboard, you can see what you just completed. I've just completed our new K through 3rd track that is online, and we'll be continually adding content to that. But more relevant is I've completed all of our preschool pre-K courses. I've saved some resources over to the side that I can come back and see very quickly. And I've also can see that I've completed my profile, and if that was not 100%, then I would be able to click edit and go right into my profile, which is to see all the things that I would need to add in order to make my my profile complete. The largest part, and I guess the most exciting for those of us on the line that want to provide early learning to our educators across the country would be our preschool pre-K courses. And if you look over here to the right, about midway through, you'll see a drop-down where you can explore our courses by category. We currently have courses for education professionals broken down by the infant, toddler, preschool, pre-K, K through third, and then our course that talks about the why, which is Build My Brain. We offer information for government agencies, the community, and we are soon going to be adding a public health sector, starting with Talk With Me Baby for birthing hospitals, which will be for prenatal into birth, and then we want to expand that work throughout other avenues of public health. So our promise video that we just all watched together is at the start of our preschool pre-K content. And then you'll see where we have a list of all the courses. You'll see how many training hours it takes to complete a course, how many lessons there are, and then you get to see all the courses that are on Cox Campus. And I'm going to just go into a quick one, which is Power of Language, and give you an idea of what, once you're in the course, what it looks like. So you'll see the main course at the top, and then the course is made up of lessons. And there are 6 lessons in Power of Language. And then as we go into a course, you can see how many minutes each lesson contains. And then within each lesson, we have what are called steps, and you'll see these steps over on the right-hand side. And to give you an idea of what our videos look like and how we're transferring capacity through videos, I'm going to show you a quick video of a teacher interacting with a child after nap time and how she's pushing in language and pulling out language during a time of the day that a lot of teachers don't realize that you can do that.
It would be easy to overlook the end of nap time as a time to model rich vocabulary and well-formed sentences. Not in Rhonda's classroom. Watch as she pushes in language while Taylor is just waking up from a nap.
Did you sleep well? Did you have any dreams or anything? No dreams this time? I thought queens and princes always dream. Not this time. You did have one? Who was in there? Stretch it out, stretch it out. Who was in that dream? I'm very, very curious. I was in it. What happened, girl?
I was the best teacher.
I was the best teacher. That's not a dream, that's reality.
So that's a view into what just one video that makes up a course, and you'll see that we film our courses in a live classroom with live actions where a teacher is going through the natural part of her day. And in this particular course, if you look down the right-hand side, you'll see how we're showing at every part of the day: arrival, morning meeting, transitions, going outside, during hand washing, mealtime, nap, closing circle. Every part of the day we are touching on here about how you can push in and pull out language with your children. I'm going to go back to the video courses and switch over to our infant toddler track, where you'll see the courses that we have there. Same setup, number of hours, lessons, and then all of the courses that make up that part of Cox Campus. One of the things that, as I was talking about earlier, that teachers really wanted was the ability to be able to put into practice what they learned today in their classroom tomorrow. So as a part of all of our courses, we have a resource center that the teacher can go to, and these are also linked within the course itself, and find resources, including activities, ways to set up interactive story read with book reads, video examples if they want to see more about something that they learned about, but everything that they would need to be able to put what they learned into practice, they can find on Cox Campus. So to make it as seamless as possible. You can break down your search by age, by the instructional strategy that's taught in the courses, by topics that you might be looking for. A lot of early learning go by themes, so you can search by themes within the course that you took and those topics, or a resource type if you're looking for a document, model classroom, video, or an additional website for more information. And then we have our community, where you can write a post at any point in time, and it will go into our general discussion board where teachers and educators all over the country and eventually professionals helping professionals will be a part of this general discussion board, or you can go into our course discussions. And within our course discussion, there are points throughout the course where a topic is talked about, and then you can come in here and reply, and you see somebody replied 25 minutes ago on a post that came from our Power of Language Lesson 1, Dream Big. And you can link things here, you can reply to someone else, you can post an additional comment yourself. So our dashboard is a way to interact with other people, and we're continuing to hone that area of Cox Campus to create more interactivity between members regardless of where they live or time zone, so that the exposure to the work that's being done can happen across the country, and people can begin to have conversations with others and experiences that might not be like theirs, but they could learn from their ability or what they've done in implementing the strategies on Cox Campus. And then we have our certificates area, where if you have completed a course, you can come to this area of Cox Campus and print your certificate for credit. In the state of Georgia, we offer continuing education units, and in Alabama right now, infant and toddler teachers can, but we are in the process right now of getting ISET certified so that we can offer CEUs across the country, and eventually you'll be able to see all of that here. And it's just an easy way that if you want to come on and be able to quickly get your certificate for the center you work in, or to keep up with what your continuing education is, you can get it here. So I'm going to go back to my dashboard for a quick minute and point out something I didn't talk about, but this group dashboard is where we're doing some beta testing with online coaching, where we've established some coaching groups where you can post announcements. If you're a coach, you can see your members here. You can individually message with another member. You can see how long ago it was they were online. And then as a group, you can see kind of what the metrics are for your group. We eventually are going to streamline some of these reports that you see on the side, but if you're managing a group and you want to know where they are with course completions and different things about their account, you will be able to help them out here. We hope to be able to roll that out to anyone once we complete our coaching track that's going to go on Cox Campus. As you see the action plans and my action plans, that's when you go in deeper into coaching and get in a one-on-one session with someone, and an action plan is basically what takes you through your coaching cycle. And those are all tied to Cox Campus courses. So I did want to say that we have a little over 75,000 members on Cox Campus to date. Around 45,000 of those are in the state of Georgia, and 30,000 are outside the state of Georgia. In addition, one of the things that we have made an important focus for our work on Cox Campus is completion rates of courses. One of the things that we learned when we were researching online learning was that the completion rate for online learning, the industry average is around 25 to 27%. And right now we are averaging between 85 and 87% completion rate on all of our courses on Cox Campus. And now I'm going to share with you another slide, and I'm going to hand it over to Corey Kane to talk a little bit about our big picture.
Sure. Hello, everyone. So we wanted to make sure that we share with you not only the functionality of the site itself, but what's there and what's to come. So if you look at the slide that's on your screen, we create resources and courses for teachers, families, professionals that are child-facing from prenatal all the way through kindergarten through third grade. And if you look on the screen, one of our foundational courses is Build My Brain. We partnered with the Harvard Center for the Developing Child to really create the why behind the what. We use this course to really educate those outside of the education space at the importance of brain development and how to foster it. And then Jennifer talked through her demonstration about the courses for our infant and toddler teachers, preschool pre-K teachers, and then our kindergarten through third grade teachers, which we are currently in development now. if you go to the bottom of the slide, you'll see what's to come. So we are working with local public hospitals and our Department of Public Health to create courses to support various entities around the work specific for prenatal, the prenatal through age 5. And so you'll see Talk With Me Baby for birthing hospitals, Talk With Me Baby for pediatricians, Talk With Me Baby at work, and that really is partnering with your HR department to provide resources through HR for your employees, and then Talk With Me Baby in the community. The next we have coming to our Birth to 5 track, and I think there was a question about our support around dual language learners. So we are right now in our beta testing phase in our live work to develop strategies that really looks at the science of language and literacy for dual language learners, and we'll be creating and releasing courses over the next few months that support educators and parents in that space. Another thing that we've learned from doing this work for so long is that beyond professional development, really how to transfer this information to adult learners and support them through using coaching. The science around coaching is really important. So to deepen the engagement on Cox Campus, we are developing in partnership with the Lastinger Center a coaching track to help those lead teachers, mentor teachers, instructional coaches, or instructional leads at early childhood centers and kindergarten through 3rd grade spaces to really understand how coaching drives adoption and integration on the ground. The other nuance in the birth to 5 space really is an effective progress monitoring system, and so we'll be creating courses to help support early childhood professionals understand how to observe and monitor children's progress. Lastly, and I'll talk a little bit more about this, or Melissa will share a lot about this when she shares how this work has helped them in their region, but what we've learned is that this work really encompasses a lot of variables on the ground. So it's not just the instruction in the classroom, but it's the entire ecosystem, all the variables that really help support children and teachers in this work. And so we'll be creating a course to support birth to 5 teachers in understanding how to develop a comprehensive ecosystem to support and drive language and literacy change. And lastly, and again, we talked about this being our newest venture, is supporting the kindergarten through 3rd grade space. Currently now we have overview courses that really look at best practices for kindergarten through 3rd grade. And coming onto the Cox Campus, we'll be drilling down by grade level, really what a day in a life related to language and literacy practices are by age. So kindergarten, 1st, 2nd, and 3rd grade. The other space that we get lots of questions about is how does RTI in this language and literacy block really gel together, and what are the nuances that come when you look at RTI. So we'll be developing a course that looks at the science around that, coupled with what we know around language and literacy instruction. Small
Can you tell me what RTI is?
Response to intervention.
There you go. Thank you. Response to intervention. Thank you.
No problem. And then the construction of the reading brain. And then our institution, Comer talked about, is an 82-year-old institution that really focuses on language and literacy practices for all children. We have a school called the Warlaw School that really has been doing the work around supporting children with dyslexia for a long time. And so we'll be putting those courses online to support that community as well. So the next thing that we want to talk about, really I want to share a little bit about how, allow Melissa to share about how and what she's doing in Savannah.
This is Debbie. Before we go to that, because I can't wait to hear what Melissa's going to share about, I have a few questions in the chat box and a few questions of my own. So if we can just take a moment and go through a few questions and then turn it over to Melissa. Okay? All right. So the first question I had was on the when you were showing the dashboard, did I see under the courses that you had a way for the educator to check for learning, or is it like a quiz, or can you tell us a little bit more about what that check for learning is?
Yes, throughout our courses, there are checks for learning and checks for understanding, and there's different types where we can check for understanding the content, and then we can check for whether or not they have the feel for the ability to do it themselves. So throughout Cox Campus, in a course, we take you through a I do, we do, you do, gradual release of the content. So we're teaching you what it is, and then we want to make sure you understand that point. Then we want to kind of walk through how you should do it and check for understanding at that point. And then again, provide them with all the tools and information they need to be able to implement on their own.
That's really great and helpful. And you're bundling the lessons into a course. How is higher ed looking? They would give a certain number of credits based on the number of hours, or how is the credit linkage working?
Currently, right now, the credit is linked by the length of time of the course. So an hour-long course would equal 1 credit, and then they go in whole increments. So if we had a 2.5-hour course, it would be two credits.
You talked about that there were quite a few people using the Cox Campus that come from different states. And when I hear that, it always makes me think about, is your content approved for certification, or in other states, or by the other states' PD system? And can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes, so currently we are able to offer credit in Georgia as an approved entity, Alabama, and Tennessee. We are working with the state of Mississippi to explore ways to do that now. But Jennifer mentioned in her demonstration that another aspect, so we've been talking to several states, and the IACET accreditation is what we are after now. We are in the early stages of applying to be an IACET approved trainer. And we will be doing that, as well as Jennifer and I actually got off a call with a partner today to figure out how we advance the ability to offer credit in other states. We don't have state approval in all states yet, but we have a strategy to kind of get us there.
And one thing to add,
great. Yeah.
And one thing to add, we have teachers, others who, in all 50 states, who are training in 42 countries altogether. And interesting, like in Kingston, Jamaica, they have created their own accreditation or certification program without any participation by us, where teachers there have created a community of practice where they've adopted their own standards for what constitutes credit for their continuing professional growth. And we know those are happening in Haiti and other places where similar communities have developed organically.
That's really exciting. Now, I have another question. A couple from the chat box. This was right now a free resource to other states, or just really practitioners are coming to you, or educators, and grabbing this content and using it, whether they're getting acknowledgement within their state PD system or not, it sounds like, right? But right now, it is free for people to access, right?
Yes, everything is free. And just to let you know, there are millions and millions, and I'll go add another millions of dollars from leading educational philanthropies around the country that have created this platform. So to make sure that it's free, our funders are all about equity and all about scale, and that the science demands a commitment to universal literacy because literacy is within the reach of every child. What is not within the reach currently is access and too many teachers who've not been given the education necessary, nor the agency in their centers to engage with children in a way that constructs the deep reading brain. And so the philanthropies have invested because we really are the conduit. If you watch the Promise video, that video was created with the idea that Walter Gilliam from Yale, Jack Shonkoff, Marianne Wolf, Dina Castro, and others that it was their voices that were being lifted up by the children. And so none of this is original science to our school. It's the science that we have been applying here for our children in the form of being the educational equivalent of a teaching hospital. Like Jennifer was showing, the resource section, and it's full of hundreds of books for infants through 5-year-olds, where we've created guides using David Dickinson's strategies around sophisticated storybooks with children. And so we have guides for the first, second, and third reads. And go back to your point, Debbie, I mean, the reason it's free is that we know the science requires that these sophisticated storybooks, let's pick Peter's Chair, really to make sure that capacity for literacy and language is being built for every child in the room. Books have to be read at least 3 times, where the first read is pushing in the language of the characters and events of the story. Second read is pushing in the characters' thoughts and feelings. And they're accompanying small group activities, center-based activities that extend the language of the book into the classroom. And then the third read is to pull out that language so the children become the storytellers. And right now we have way too much imprecision where teachers are asking questions of children during reads, and it's just making the language rich and experience rich children richer and denying access to others because there is that imprecision. So anyway, in other words, it's free because the sciences and our philanthropies want that science to be available to everyone.
And I think the second part of that question about our platform behind the website is a custom learning management system. So it is not Salesforce. It's a custom system developed for us.
It can hold millions of people can be on at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
That's so exciting. You can see that there's another question in the chat box in regard to the continuing education and professional development. How could programs and providers in other states desiring to register their certificates from the Cox Academy with their registries? So how are you relating to registries, but how do you authenticate the certificates, because some registries might require that. It has to be verified. Do you have a process around that?
So there's an organic process, because what we've learned is every state has a different process to do that. At the end of the PowerPoint, you'll have my contact information. So if there's state leaders that want to join a discussion about how, for your specific state, that we align Cox Campus courses to the requirements in your state to provide credit, we certainly can start that dialogue. I mean, this is an organic process that we've done step by step with the individual states that we are providing credit for. And so Corey Kane, it will be the conduit for that discussion to continue by state.
And I think these are conceptual, and I think it's really invaluable to hear from Melissa. And that'll probably spark more questions about what does Cox Campus look like. She'll give more information, and then I think it'll lead to questions about practical application of the Cox Campus.
That sounds great. So without further ado, let's turn to that, but keep your questions coming in the chat box, and we'll come back to those throughout. Thank you. All right, Melissa, you're on.
Before Melissa starts, I just want to give a little context of why her work has been invaluable to Cox Campus and really understanding that. So we've been doing this work for a number of years at the Rollins Center, and when we first started, we really saw ourselves as a professional development resource for teachers. And what we've learned from our work is that there are several ingredients that really makes this work live and breathe beyond a professional learning training. And leaders are at the centerpiece of that work. And where we've had transformative change in communities is when leaders like Melissa have really taken the reins of the work and been unwavering in their commitment to children. And that really was what propelled Melissa forward in doing a deep dive into Cox Campus without a real relationship with the Rollins Center. She was concerned about her community and really wanted to see systematic change. And so what we found Melissa out on the in our relationship with the Department of Early Care and Learning, because her region really was a leader in achieving quality rated status. And so we asked Melissa to join us in our conversation at the Build Conference and here on this call today to really share on the ground how Cox Campus has transformed the work that they've been doing in that child care resource and referral region. So we want Melissa to share, but she really embodies two things: a leader that's committed to change and a network to really move this work forward. And so we want Melissa to kind of share how she saw this work really changing and transforming her community.
Thank you for the introduction. I don't know that it was deserved, but I really appreciate it. My name is Melissa Cole, and I am with the Southeast Georgia CCR&R. And so I just kind of want to talk to you for a second about where we started and what brought us to that situation of looking at what do we need to change about our processes and how we use this toolbox that we've learned and become so close to with Cox Campus. So we had to look at, there was a change happening in our state, and our change was that we were moving, for a scale-specific purpose, we were moving from ECRS R to ECRS 3. And like class, ECRS 3 focuses on, and Lena and Top Cop and all those different things focus on the language, and not just do you have enough materials, how long are you using materials. So we really wanted to look at things in a different manner than have been done before, because we didn't want to look at it in terms of checklist TA of, okay, you have 15 fine motor materials, so you are good here, or you have 3 hours of free play in your schedule, so you're good here. We wanted to see behavioral changes and the way that EC professionals really viewed themselves in the foundational learning of the youngest learners of Georgia. And so that was a pivotal point for us. And so we were like, okay, so what do we have out there? And we were fortunate that at one of our meetings, our statewide meetings, Cox Campus had presented, and we were just like, oh, we like them. We like them a lot. So we started diving into that, and I pushed a few of my TAs to do some work, and they joined it and jumped in, and then we'll talk about that in a few minutes about how it worked for some, but the ones that weren't committed, how those results turned out. And so it was just really a matter of saying, okay, I don't want to recreate the wheel. We know how to do language interactions. We know what quality language interactions look like, but Cox Campus has already put all this together for us. So why not use this wonderful toolbox versus trying to create our own piece? Because we already have everything at our fingertips right there. So if we go to the next slide, I'm going to talk about how that unveiled for us in Savannah. So if you look at this slide, you see the yellow, orange is a child care learning center that did not use Cox Campus. And then the blue is program 2, which is the child care learning center. The lighter blue, the medium blue, I don't know why I used all these blues. The medium blue is a Head Start program, and the lightest blue is a family child care center. So if you look at their baseline scores, and these baseline scores are from the environment rating scale. So those baseline scores show that they all were between the inadequate, some at good, some moving towards excellent, but they were all at various places. Head Start especially exceeded, but they also are tied to class for their federal review, so that was expected that they exceeded on their baseline. So if you go to their mock scores, we do a mock about 2 months prior to them getting their formal assessment. Our region does a mock with all of our programs, and so we looked at those scores and how they had improved over time, and you could see the difference in the scores from baseline to mock scores. And then we went further and we looked at the final QR assessments. After the mock, quite a few of them had what we like to call a coming to Jesus. I'm sure that y'all have that in your states as well, where it's like, oh, we thought we were doing so great on this, but oh wait, we're not doing this yet. Let me quickly fix that. But they did, and so our scores then showed the Head Start went even higher, and the Child Care Learning Center that did use Cox Campus, the darkest blue, stayed about the same in the family child care. They kind of went back and forth a little bit. So let's talk to the next slide for just a second. So this next slide shows you how long it took them to get through the process. So I don't know how other states, state leaders feel, but I know that one of our situations is looking at maintaining quality, increasing quality, but also at the same time increasing capacity of the number of programs that are served and the programs that are reaching that quality rate improvement system goal. So the program that did not use Cox Campus, the reason they were able to successfully pull it off with their final QR assessment is because they had to have a massive amount of personalized TA in the last few months. And that TA was there every day, every week for about 2 months, just trying to work with them just to get them to the point that they wanted to be with their quality. So I would love to see what their sustainability looks like. I do know which program that is, and I would love to see what their sustainability looks like when it's time for them to go back through the required reassessment, because I believe that if you learn high quality standards quickly and you don't use a system of gradually scaffolding to understand that process, that you don't retain that knowledge quite like you would in another situation. So with program 2, that program was able to complete it in just under 12 months. So that program was a Child Care Learning Center that used the Cox Campus. For program 3, the Head Start, they were able to complete it in about 9 months. And then the Family Child Care program was able to complete it in just under 12 months. And that means starting the process, saying, I am ready to receive coaching from your program, going through all of the training, submitting their portfolio that says I'm ready to rate, and receiving a rating. So those different pieces are important for you to look at as to how quickly you can move programs through a process, because the information that's shared in Cox Campus does allow for you to have hands-on learning regardless of the zip code. So let me give you a little information, a little backstory about what you see here. The program that has the darkest blue, the program 2, CCLC, that program is not in a centralized location close to training. So that allowed that program to receive high quality training regardless of whether or not they had training at their fingertips within 15 minutes. Their closest training location is about an hour from them, which put for a lot of travel time for their staff. So they focused on it, and they were able to use the Cox Campus. So they were able to get the high quality training that we could offer them face to face in a training setting, but they were able to get it at their fingertips without having to do the travel. And that also helped them in the fact that they couldn't pay their staff to go attend trainings necessarily. They had to pay that overtime or comp their time for FLSA, and that allowed them to do it during planned training hours where they would stop and let them work on their lessons and their modules. And with what we didn't, I don't think we talked about though with Jennifer when she presented, was that as you're going through those modules, it's not you have to complete everything at one time. You get to pick up and drop off wherever you go into the module at and wherever you stopped at, so you can continue your progress. So if I only get 30 minutes in today because I have a child wake up from nap time, or I for some reason couldn't get an hour in, or I couldn't do this, the minutes count, not just the hours that it takes to go to the training. So that part is great. And that also was a piece that they loved, because the fact that they were able to go back and look at, they could go back and review the videos. It wasn't just, okay, I completed this training face-to-face and now I don't have that resource, or I have that resource, but I really wish I could see this again. Or do you remember how this worked in this training? And we're going to talk about that in a few minutes, how our coaches use that to help do what we call transfer of learning from Cox Campus, for them to apply it, to actually use it in their classroom and change their classroom strategies. So with all that being said, we're going to move into our piece on how we made this all happen. So if you can go ahead and switch the slide for me. Okay, so we are going to move to Jennifer presenting the information on the Cox Campus website for us. Thank you, Jennifer. We're going to start with, Jennifer showed you a little bit of power of language for preschool, but I want to talk specifically about infant toddler. I've been a coach, and it's rough. And it's rough trying to help people understand, especially infant toddler, because there's 1,000,001 websites and blogs and everything you can think of about best practices and easy ways to engage infants and toddlers, preschoolers, because they are more verbal and the skill set is already there as far as their ability to use language in some way, shape, or form. However, for infants and toddlers, it's like, where do you even start? So I love this particular module called Power of Language for Infants and Toddlers. And one of the things that it talks about during this module is looking at how do you use language during your personal care routines? How do you go through and engage that child, just like in the Promise 2020 video? How do you talk to that child and not just, I'm going through the routine of, like one of my TAs told me earlier, one of my coaches told me earlier, she said it's like they're herding cattle and they're just getting them through. They're doing a diaper change, they're washing hands, they're moving them back to the group. Diaper change, wash their hands, move back to the group. Well, we wanted them to have more responsive caregiving than that. So one of the things that we would do is we would have the teachers and the director or the family child care provider, whoever is the responsible party, we would have them take the power of language. And then, because of the fact that you're able to go back to the little clips, the little steps of videos, we would go back to the video and we would say, okay, as we're talking to that provider, we would ask them, we're like, okay, so tell us what you chose to do and what had the most impact on you. And they might talk about a certain video, or they might be trying to remember what happened on a video, and we're able to pull that video up for them on our smartphone at that moment and show them that video and review it with them again. So that's awesome. And also the way that it transfers to be presented on a smartphone is very easy to use. It's very user-friendly. So our teachers actually take these courses on their smartphones. And so then we would show them the video and talk about procedures. So if we go to the Guide to Responsive Interactions Throughout the Day, it's a resource that's part of Power of Language.
Melissa, can you repeat what resource you want to pull up?
Sure, it's the Guide to Responsive Interactions Throughout the Day. Okay, I'll just keep on working through it. I can send this resource to you, and I can actually send the exact link to go towards it. So it talks about the different responsive language you need to have at different times of the day. So if we were focusing on diaper changing, and we were doing just like in the Promise 2020 video, we were looking at the fact that they want to ask questions such as talking to them about how they're changing their diaper, talk about their day, anything possible. What they'll do is they'll take the actual resource and they will look at they will give the resource to the director, and they'll allow the director to go in there with them, with the coach, to have an opportunity to observe parallel. And so they'll observe the teacher, because the teacher says, I'm working on these diapering procedures and increasing that language based on that strategy that I picked. And they'll go through and they'll highlight what they saw the teacher do. And that's it. And once they highlight, so if you're looking at diaper changing right now, they'll highlight what they saw the teacher do, and they'll highlight any vocabulary they heard the teacher say, and then they'll compare it. They'll get back together. The teacher, the coach and the director will compare it, and then they'll talk to the teacher together, and they'll let the coach will model how to talk to the teacher if the teacher and the director have not ever engaged in this way before. If not, they'll allow the director to just go on straight into doing their coaching with the teacher, and then they'll follow up. So they're teaching that director how to do the coaching and the feedback and what they should be looking for their practices. But one of the coolest parts is they take the same document, and if the teacher's just not understanding something or the teacher's missing a certain piece, then the coach or the director can go in and model for that teacher and allow that teacher to assess them using this document. And like I said, they just highlight. So tips for responsive interactions and vocabulary to highlight. They just highlight on their sheet of paper what they heard, what they saw, things that occurred that let them know that responsive interactions were happening during diaper changing. So it's just a quick, and this is just a whole maybe 15-minute piece that our TAs can do with them and our coaches can do with them. And it's a quick, easy reference, and it doesn't have to go into you creating a whole new piece, you creating a whole new document or a training, or trying to figure out all the different pieces and trying to explain to them, going to find a video. Everything is right here for you in one-stop shop on Cox Campus. So that makes it amazing. So that's kind of how the power of language works, and there's different pieces in the power of language, as I talked about in the preschool track, that allows you to go through, meal and snack time, nap time, all those different pieces for them to start trying to pick apart the needs that they have specifically in different times of the day, and not just overview of saying, oh, well, this is what you should be doing. No, you have different times of the day that you need to be saying different things. You need to be engaging in different ways. There are so many opportunities to talk. So just as Jennifer is scrolling down on the side, on the right-hand side, you can see the different opportunities that they would be able to look at that video and see, how can I talk more during that opportunity during the day? So the next one that we're going to move to is on the infant toddler track. It is Talk With Me. The one thing that my staff love about this one, they just jumped right in on this one, is because of the fact that not only is it called Talk With Me, but then the strategy has the acronym TALK. So it makes it easy for them to keep going back and forth with the teacher and the director on, hey, are they using TALK? Are they using TALK? It just lines right with it. It just kind of rolls off their tongue. So they just love that part. So we have some different strategies we use with that. And so a really cool piece is, if we can go to the TALK actual strategy document, Jennifer. The one from Talk With Me. It's right there, the Talk With Me poster. So the same concept here. They do the coaching with the director or the family child care provider, so that the director, if it's the director, they're getting to go and actually observe the teacher, and they are watching the teacher to see if they're doing the things that are visible, that you have to visually see, like get down on the child's level, observe what the child is looking at or doing, and then going through and looking at the different pieces that actually require a visual observation. Then what they do is they do the turnaround. So they turn around and they listen, and they do their assessment with their backs to the teacher, so they can see, are all these things happening? Are all those different tune in, ask questions, lift language, keep it going, is that happening without me actually looking at the situation? Can I hear it? So you get to focus on that language. So they do the turnaround and they use the Talk With Me. And like I said, the director and the coach both highlight the things that they see and observe and hear. And then they go back and they talk about it, and they talk about it with the teacher, and then they give the teacher the opportunity to observe them also if there's some more clarification they need. Plus there's the videos. They can always go in and give the teacher the sheet when they're trying to teach them about it after the teacher's had the training, and they can say, hey, now let's look at this snippet from that training, this one little video for 2 minutes, and I want you to mark what you see happening. Are they actually using the talk strategy? What's happening? So it's just a good learning opportunity. Like I said, there's already pieces there. We don't have to recreate the wheel. And that is what allows us to coach using the Cox Campus. The last one I want to look at to show you is building word knowledge, and that's in the pre-K track. And on this one, we're going to use the real-time document resource. It's a real-time checklist. Right there. So this one is super cool. I love this document. My staff love this document. We go through and we have them take the building word knowledge training, and they work on strategies. And then the teacher actually has to go in and start working on those tier 2 words. So like, for example, if we're talking about glue, let's talk about how it sticks together, about how it's an adhesive, and find other words to use to build on that word glue, so that we're talking in bigger and greater. I will never forget, I used this one time with one of my family child care providers, and she used the words transparent and translucent, and I was just like, these 2- and 3-year-olds were just pulling that back out and just like bringing up the words, and then they were comparing things, and they just caught on so quick because they're such little sponges. And so that gives you an opportunity to observe the teacher after they've decided what tier 2 words, and we tell them to plan that in. So you've got your lesson plan, so plan that in. Plan in, you know, that you're going to use tier 2 words. So your theme is on, this week is on trees. What other words are you going to use to add in? Like, plan in your vocabulary. We even have our teachers put like little cheat cards around the room to remind them to use those tier 2 words. And then the director and the TA go back, the coach, they go back and they observe and see if those things occurred based on the child, and they can say, okay, they were able to do these things with this child. And then they go back to the teacher and they say, okay, what have you observed about that child? And they talk about, you know, how that real-time checklist works, and how they are assessing where the child is on being able to lift their language and build their word knowledge, and what steps they need next for that child. So it really teaches them how to assess a child without going through a formal assessment. So this gives them the opportunity to start planning based on the true cycle of planning of the assessing, planning, teaching model, and then assessing, planning, teaching. And so it gives them an opportunity to look at that. Okay, so I see we have some questions. Debbie, do you want to lead that, or you want to just start answering questions?
There's a lot of interest in what you're talking about, that's for sure. We could see that some of the content said it was in Spanish. Can you speak a little bit about the languages the content is available in and the future for adding other languages?
So currently we have some of our resources translated into Spanish, and we offer some of the resources that have English and Spanish on the same document. That is currently all that we have available in another language. We have not had interest that has driven a desire to translate. We've had several countries translate different resources, like China has translated some of our videos, have added captioning to the videos to use them in their country, but we don't have those on the site yet.
Okay.
But that's the dual language learners course funded by the Goizueta Foundation here. I mean, and again, in large part, it's actually focused on infant, toddler through, preschool teachers who, for the most part, English is their first language, working with children for whom English is their second language. And we are in the field right now in schools where the vast majority of children home language is Spanish, and also at a refugee center where there are close to 100 dialects being used. And those centers will be on the Cox campus in the coming months, demonstrating how to build a path toward reading proficiently in English by the end of third grade, ensuring that the home language is driving the foundation for deep reading in English as well as the home language. So that's coming soon.
Great. That's interesting. I really like how you say, based on the interest in the, how this is growing from the educators and participants kind of saying what they'd like next and what could they use and that kind of thing. I think that's really, really neat. We have a question about the coaching. Just to clarify, is the coaching one online and the coaches watch a video, or do the in this CCR&R example that you're sharing, you're talking about your cadre, not the Cox Campus coaches, so to speak. It's your cadre of coaches in your CCR&R, right?
Correct. But I can actually speak to that and to explain how we do that, because it does require some virtual for us. So we looked at what happens if we are trying to get programs to have less hand-holding, which we talked about a lot during our conference session at Build. It was brought up a lot about, okay, how do you get them past that? And then also to look at it of, okay, so this is your process, and it's your job to get on there and use this information. So if we want to encourage them to keep pushing into a virtual piece of understanding, we also provide virtual TA. So one of the things that we do is we are going to be using the coaching platform for some pieces to ask questions, have some discussion topics, to bring different programs in together. So I have this group of infant toddler teachers that need to have a conversation, and this poor soul over at this one program only is one infant toddler teacher, so she has no buddies to talk through all those different things. So that gives them that community to talk through. And we use that. We're going to be using that this year.
That does seem like it has a lot of potential for the development of those little communities of practice, discussion groups, for a TA to form. I've been in, 10 of my centers, and I've got 5 teachers that are kind of thinking the same thing and having the same questions and at the same place. That there's a lot of potential in that arena, isn't there?
Right, exactly. And another,
and I can talk a little bit of, oh, sorry, Melissa, go ahead.
okay. I was going to say another cool piece is that we ask the director, I mean, we're in a cell phone world. We ask the directors to video their teachers for a minute. Just video your teachers. That way you can give them good feedback. If they don't mind, ask if you can video them. If you make it part of your practice that it's in the employee handbook that they're going to video them, then, well, I guess they signed up when they signed the first paycheck. But so we have them video their teachers, and then that way we can even do some virtual coaching with the video uploaded and say, okay, do you see how this happened right here? Okay, pause. Now let's talk about how you could have added this, this, and this, and you could have counted their fingers and counted their toes, and you could have done this. And so there's just so many pieces that can happen virtually. It isn't necessarily happening right this instance on Cox Campus, and I'm going to let Jennifer and Corey and Comer speak to that, but it is allowing for us to reduce our travel costs and our travel time. We have 40 counties in Southeast Georgia, so we go a long way. Southeast Georgia is as big as some little states. And so with that being said, we have been able to increase the number of providers that we serve, and more people can jump on virtually, and we can serve more than one program at a time in that conversation. Okay, I'm sorry, go ahead.
From a functionality standpoint, there's two types of coaching that we are trying to create resources and tools for on Cox Campus. So what Melissa is describing is her TAs will have a touch point or several touch points with an early learning center, and then a lot of what they will do is not in person. So we're trying to create coaching tools for someone who is going to do a lot of remote coaching. They'll actually see their person some or their people, but they'll be doing a lot on Cox Campus. So what I was showing you earlier with the groups, the individual messaging, when we get to the point where we're no longer beta testing the action plans, they can actually go in and have one-on-one coaching sessions with uploading video. They can send them to a certain clip on Cox Campus. They can give them a link to a resource outside of Cox Campus or a website outside of Cox Campus. We are in the process of creating a video annotation tool so that the coach can mark specific spots and maybe code in what they want to say, so when the teacher has time later, they can come back and see what the coaches had to say. And then the other part that we want to create coaching for is someone who is in an early learning center and sees their teachers every day. We don't necessarily want to give them all the access that someone who is going to be doing a lot of remote coaching, because we don't want them to hide behind a tool instead of going in the classroom and observing and doing the things face-to-face that we know coaches should be doing.
Right.
And if they can be doing that, we want them to be doing that. So we're going to have some tools for coaches who see their teachers every day and see their coachee every day, and then we're going to have tools for coaches who are remote to most of the people that they're coaching or leading.
Right. And so to speak on that, I just want to make sure that, so the way we handle it in Southeast is that we go once or twice a month to see the program, depending on their needs. Like, I mean, if they're just a quick learner and they can do more virtually, great. But most of them do need some, some scaffolding of hand-holding in the beginning to get them comfortable with this. So I see that someone asked, how do you prepare the TA to support the early educators in the use of this tool? Well, first of all, I require all my staff during the onboarding process to take all of the Cox Campus modules. They have to present certificates. That's part of their probationary period that they have to understand before they're allowed to step foot in a classroom to offer TA, how we use the Cox Campus. We have created like little strategy cheat sheets for us, like, okay, if this situation, use this strategy. On Cox Campus, they have a lot of those same cheat sheets. So we discovered that after we started creating them, so we stopped. Now we're using the ones on Cox Campus. So we were like, ooh, there's more in there. And all those different pieces, but just the idea of being able to use this platform in a coaching sense, the way that Jennifer's speaking to, that just gets me so excited. I just am just so ready to jump into that. I'm so ready to see action plans happening and the transfer of learning that occurs, because it's more than just taking a class and saying, oh yeah, I learned about that in my class that time, but then taking that class, using the information and going and actually making real changes in your classroom, real behavioral changes that are going to set these children ahead for being ready to read on grade level and things of that sort by 3rd grade. And it just is so exciting that they have the opportunity, and regardless of their zip code, that they can do all of this.
Just as a final, we're running down in time, and we're still getting questions in the chat box. Could you put coaches themselves in a community of practice to talk about the work of working with the programs?
Yes, we can. What we did for Georgia and what Melissa is talking about is that we did open up that beta group in the Cox Campus community so that they could create a community region group where Melissa can communicate with all of her TAs and talk about commonalities, themes, and the TAs can create groups with their people. So there is the functionality. We're working on scaling that functionality for all the 75,000 members on Cox Campus right now.
Jonathan, can you drift to the final slides as we do a little bit of wrap up? I'd just like to thank you all so much for coming and speaking with us today. And if you had something as a wrap up to this conversation, you've seen a lot of great questions in the chat box. What would you say in closing? And Melissa, why don't we start with you, the person on the ground in the trenches here. What would you share as a wrap up sentiment?
Sure. If you want to increase quality and capacity at the same time, Cox Campus is your resource.
Okay. Corey, what are you thinking about?
So one of the things that I want to share, 2 slides up, is my contact information. I would love to continue the dialogue with states as they think about how Cox Campus become a resource and we can provide state-approved credit. There it is. That's the contact information. So if anyone is interested in continuing this dialogue and see a fit for your state, we would love to continue that conversation.
Thank you. That's great. That's great. Jennifer?
I would just like to say that if you guys do get on, well, I shouldn't say when you get on Cox Campus, there is a little icon on the bottom right that's kind of a messenger chat type tool. We would love to hear what you like about it, what you don't like about it, any features you would like to see added, capabilities of the site, content. We would love to hear from you so that we can continue to make Cox Campus what you need and be able to serve the people who serve children in the best way possible.
That's great. And Comer, can you close us out here with the thought for today?
Yes, thanks to everybody for participating. Please follow up with us in any way. I guess we have done lab sessions with thousands of teachers, and I have to say to everybody, we have found way too often they are not safe places for teachers who didn't receive the kind of higher education they should have, where the science wasn't brought to them, where they haven't had the agency to engage with their children in the way they need to be authorized to do it. And so the whole idea of the Cox Campus is a safe place for people to learn. If they're just persistent, stay with it. This is a place to find their voice. And I was just so struck. I want to finish with what we all heard from Melissa, how she builds relationships with her teachers through her coaches and those activities, and for the Cox Campus to be a resource for her to empower her staff. And anyway, we want to help join with Melissa and so many others to eradicate illiteracy. We know what to do. Are we going to do it? So we're grateful. Debbie, thank you, Jonathan, for giving us this opportunity to be together with y'all.
Thank you so much for all of what you shared today, and I'm sure that people across the country now are going to be thinking about this, calling you up and chatting more deeply about it. Thanks again, everyone, and to all of our great participants with their good questions, really making it such a rich session. Thank you, everyone. See you next month.